and welcome to the Next Best Picture podcast, where I am being joined right now by the director of 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, Mstyslav Chernov, Academy Award winner, might I add, Mstyslav Chernov. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to first start off by asking that when 20 Days in Mariupol has this award season run, gets all this worldwide exposure for you and for what you're highlighting, obviously, in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Does something like that move the needle? Do you see any kind of positive impact from any, the level of exposure that film was able to get?
Wow, straight to the point, straight to the hard point. Look, I think just as a starting point, hoping to have a positive impact with your film or with your reporting it's a very good place to start. But sooner or later, filmmakers and journalists, especially in the times of turmoil like right now, will face the disappointment of not doing enough and not having enough impact. Even with a huge success of 20 Days in Mariupol, even with millions of people who saw it and whose opinions may have changed, who saw the truth about the invasion, the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine. The place where we are right now is still not very good. It's things are worse since then.
Yeah.
So in short term, I don't see a result. That being said, let's say history is not always what happened. Here, history is what we remember, right? So recording the history, whether we're talking about 20 Days in Mariupol and war crimes, or 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, our new film, and recording the experience of Ukrainian soldiers on the front line in 2023, all that must be recorded as truthful, as realistic as possible, because as time passes, with all the noise, with all the distortion of the information that is happening around us, with all the generative AI, with the fake news, all of this will lead to for us losing the reality. Okay, so the documentary is, and I hope my films too, take on this task of preserving that reality and that experience. So that's also a battle, okay, and that's the battle we have to fight. That's the battle for the past, not only for the present. And so that's what I am doing.
No, I mean, there's something extremely admirable in, even if it's not making as big of a difference as you hope, you're still fighting, you're still pushing, you're still documenting, you're, like you said, preserving. And you've commented before and said that this film in its way acts as like a lament, a memorial to the soldiers who are fighting this fight. I think on the surface, the way this movie is structured and presented, people almost view it like a video game where we have to get from one point to another. This is the mission, and we are going to push through and fight to get to this point. But as the story progresses, you realize, oh no, it's really a tribute to these brave people that are laying down their lives for this task.
There is certainly that dramatic structure that you have mentioned, and I think having that dramatic structure really helps to get complex themes across. The more complex your story is, more simply you want to tell it, right? And so we've been lucky that the reality gave us that simplicity and when I first met Fedya, the protagonist of 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, and his platoon, and they were recovering from the battle, that one of the battles that we see in the film, the battle for 300 meters, and where they lost their friend Gagarin, and we met them, and I still remember that meeting. They were mourning their friend, and they were watching the footage that we have in a film. They were watching the footage from their body cams, analyzing the battle, and they saw it for the first time, and we saw it for the first time, and just seeing their reactions, seeing their reflections, seeing then that strip of land, strip of forest on the map, and the Andriivka right in the end of it, and knowing that they will continue on that mission to liberate that village. Maybe we didn't know if that's going to happen. Told me that's not just a story of this platoon. This will be a story of every single soldier on the front line. And later on, I would say we've been finally screening this film for them and their family and the families of their, the soldiers who unfortunately did not survive after this operation. And so we've been screening in Ukraine this film for them. And I saw that a film gained even more importance, even more symbolism, because it was not just about the fight of those men. It was also about remembering, about the memories of those who didn't survive, who remained in that forest. And for their families, it was so extremely important to see hundreds of people getting up from their seats and having a standing ovation for 10 minutes, just giving an honor and remembrance and gratitude to the families and to these men. So that was probably the most important moment for me. And coming back to your first question about the impact, can hope for a huge impact. You can hope for world change, but ultimately all goes down to, can we preserve the memory of the loved ones for their families? And that's what we're trying.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because this is still obviously an ongoing larger conflict. This film is focused on this smaller objective. So I would imagine, as far as, I ask this of documentary filmmakers all the time, how do you know when to stop shooting? How do you know you've reached the end of the movie? There seemed to be a very clear and logical endpoint for this. However, the text at the end of the film makes it clear that Russia took back the land and pushed back. And obviously, even though a victory was won, the greater battle still wages on.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to try to keep focus, and because there is so much noise, so much big words, abstract ideas going around the world, and to be able to tell a personal story, you gotta zoom in. You gotta limit your vision and focus only on that strip, on that 2,000 meters. And that's what was appealing to us, to me as a director, that, the entire film is happening in that 1 mile of land, of that 1 mile of narrow forest. And the main action of the film, it is happening, the main storyline of the film is just one day. Adds flashbacks and flash forwards from other time, but the main storyline is really one day and 1 mile of that forest. And being able to keep that focus, I think, brings the audience much closer to these experiences of these men there, almost like a real time living through that real time. And well, that's what I, as a director, am trying to achieve, the maximum realism of the experience.
Yeah, and the footage is obviously incredible, unlike anything like I've personally ever seen before. But I think one of the elements that helps it to feel so powerful and overwhelming is the soundscape that helps the film too. You've got the score by Sam Slater, and then you have what I imagine was a really tough task by your sound team, because this is actual gunfire, actual explosions. If even if you have microphones that are capturing this, they're gonna pop. They're gonna like break through the barrier limit of what's usable sound for a movie. So I imagine a lot of this has got to be a really tough task for you to create an atmosphere.
Which is, by the way, how your ears also react. Sometimes your ears pop if the
Right.
bomb is next to you, the ears ring, they or you stop hearing for a second. And so microphones sometimes act in a very similar way to your ears. And I gotta tell you, we did not have a sound designer on this film. So as on 20
Wow.
days, so as on 2000 meters to Andriivka, there is no sound design, there is no Foley. What you hear in the film is what was recorded on the battlefield in those moments, and that's it. And again, this is our attempt to achieve the real experience of the raw experience of being there. That being said, of course, to be able to transport people into the mood and to be able to connect all the scenes and say guide audience emotionally through the emotions of our protagonists. Uh, that's where the music comes in, and that's where Sam's work really shines. He's a genius composer. I love his work, and especially the way he deals with sound, with real sounds, the way he and his team is able to transform the sounds of the battlefield into the musical instruments. And that was one of the things that we decided from the beginning. You can't, you don't hear an orchestra when you are in a on a battlefield, or there is no piano on a battlefield. All you hear is the the bullets, the explosions, the drones, and those are sounds that are inspiring the music and the musicscape. And yeah, they've even built an instrument that didn't exist before for this film. We were looking for the signature sounds that would come in frequently and make you feel uncomfortable. That fear that just grips you and holds you on the battlefield. Yeah, the cobophone that they've invented was a pretty amazing instrument. So yeah, everything serves to that purpose, and there is no harmony in the music until the very, very last moment, the moment of lament, the moment of remembering the lives that are lost. So it's dissonant, it's uncomfortable, and then it comes to its resolution in the very, very end of the film.
Yeah. I always ask filmmakers, documentary filmmakers all the time, how many hours of footage did you have to assemble? Because I know for documentary filmmaking, could be years and years and years of worth of footage, and it gets chopped down to, in this particular case, an hour and 48 minutes. So how much footage did you have, and what was your initial cut like?
Yeah, the cut was long. I don't remember exactly the timing, but of course, it can go up to like 4 hours. But we had to go through, and I have to give a shout to Michelle Meissner, amazing editor and producer of 20 Days in Mariupol, and we worked on 2,000 meters to Andriivka too. She, we went through all this, and she been able to build uh, a beautiful, comprehensive structure out of very chaotic 100 hours of uh, of the body cam footage. Some of that body cam footage being 360, so it could be reframed, drones, two cameras, to just proper cameras on a battlefield and in headquarters. And of course, we didn't get this footage all at once. We've been gathering it and getting it for almost a year while we were editing. And of course, our protagonists were dying during that time. So we also kept changing. We kept changing, and the film kept changing to the new reality. of it, and we would come back to the footage we already went through and search for the moments of people who are not longer with us.
One of the things that really struck me when I watched this, and I saw it, I remember I saw it back in January at the Sundance premiere, but even then I was really struck by how when 20 Days in Mariupol came out, there seemed to be a lot of passion, a lot of fire in people to support the war in Ukraine and to bring it to light so that this way other nations could also help support as well. This has still been going on now for a number of years at this point, and I do feel that people have either forgotten or that fire is just like kind of slowly like, dying out. Are you going to continue to keep making films that are telling these stories to help people to remember and to ignite that spark, hopefully?
Oh, yes, for sure, for sure. And I think it is quite natural that people are getting tired. They're getting tired of violence. They're getting tired of wars, of bad news that are coming from every side at them. And there are, of course, tough things that are happening in their own countries. But I think people who realize that what is happening in Ukraine impacts everyone, in Europe, everyone in US, that wouldn't allow that it does not allow them to forget completely. Getting tired, yes, but forget and stop caring, probably no. But I think this documentary cinema, and I feel that's one of the reasons why I am transitioning from a journalistic approach, which I took in 20 Days, because 20 Days was initially shot as a series of news dispatches. 2000 meters, Andriivka was already shot more like a film. It was conceived as a film and shot as a film. So I just see that the documentary cinema is a stronger medium right now to reach people's hearts and minds. You still get to people on the emotional level and keep them engaged and interested with cinema. So that is something that I feel I need to do, and that's the best I can do within my skill set. But it's still, it's still in headlines all the time. And
Yeah.
here's what it is. The interest is there. It's just conversations about Ukraine have become quite abstract. They are all right now in a this political realm of talks and abstract conversations about cities and land and numbers of casualties. But what 2000 meters Andriivka is strong at is to bring in those abstractions to very specific faces, to very specific lives, to very specific stories, very simple stories, right? And so I think that's what we should keep doing, just to bringing it from the abstract realm into specific experience and specific stories of real people.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so too. As you were mentioning that, I just suddenly thought a good way to probably end this interview is to ask, in a world that is just inundated with what would be considered fake news or propaganda, we don't know the exact numbers. Russia is obviously not going to come forward and say, oh, we took this many heavy losses in this battle, et cetera, et cetera. What is like a very reliable news source that people can turn to get updates on the war in Ukraine?
I work for AT, so I would, of course, say Associated Press.
Sure.
Of course. And but I think we do need to get reliable information. We do need to turn to variety of resources. We do need to.
I think that's true, because if people don't know where to get their news from, or it's contradicting, they give up.
Yeah, and again, it's very easy right now to get disappointed in journalism.
Yeah.
Because the majority of information that we are facing right now is not true. The majority of information that is surrounding us in the internet is false. Truth requires effort. Truth, as you can see in the film, in 2,000 meters and in 20 days, truth requires to be in danger and requires certain sacrifices. But it's necessary, because the body of truth that is currently being created and preserved by a number of journalists is what's going to it's the only thing that's going to stand on the way between complete distortion of reality and real events. So each journalist on his own, on her own, would seem to be not doing much, but all together with documentarians as well, that we create the body of truth that will hopefully remain in for future, right?
Yeah.
And the final example, when we were nominated for the Oscars with 20 Days, at the same time Russia released their state TV channels released a film that was called 2022 Mariupol. So if you would go, and it was scripted miniseries that was shot on the location in Mariupol after it got occupied. Very high value production, and that's the reality that millions of Russians have seen it. And if you go online and you search 20 Days in Mariupol in Russia right now, you would probably get their version of this reality and how they want to portray it. And if 20 Days in Mariupol didn't exist, that would be the only version. So we just have to make sure that we have this truth preserved.
Well, I thank you and I commend you wholeheartedly for your quest to preserve the truth, and I wish you the best of luck in whatever story you choose to tell next centered around this terrible conflict, and I hope for a peaceful and swift resolution, as I'm sure we all do. So nothing but my very best to you. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you.
Take care.